He don't want easy fights. He wants the big boys. He wants the guys that are going to challenge him and going to bring danger. He wants to prove the people he's the best. And he will prove it, and he will look badass with these guys.
Usyk just responded to Benavidez, and boxing fans are losing it. Oleksandr Usyk says he is ready for any challenge. Even David Benavidez, the heavyweight king, looked calm, but his message was crystal clear. If this fight happens, it could shake the entire boxing world.
Undisputed in the cruiserweight division before coming up to the heavyweight division and becoming undisputed there. So the thing is, does Benavidez want to go up to heavyweight, go up even more in weight, which he already did 25 pounds to go up to cruiserweight, and then go up more to meet Usyk there? Or will Usyk be coming down to cruiserweight?
The strange thing about boxing is that one interview can suddenly feel more dangerous than the actual fight. Because right after David Benavidez started calling out Oleksandr Usyk following the Zordo Ramirez fight, Usyk responded in a way that sounded less like promotion and more like a warning from a man who genuinely enjoys chaos. Did Benavidez just challenge the one fighter nobody should provoke? And what exactly did Usyk say that made boxing fans suddenly nervous?
Biggest fights of this decade right now. Take it while it's hot. Don't play with them, and don't let them play with you. It is not smart for David Benavidez to give Jabatai a shot at his name right now because he's hot right now. You go up and fight Usyk while you're hot, and it makes sense. You can always come back down and fight Batai if you want to. You understand? If you lost to Usyk, Batai fight still there. If you lose to Batai, Usyk fight gone. So be smart about this thing. Go take Usyk.
I said after the fight this past Saturday, after I witnessed what David Benavidez did, I said that I'd pick David Benavidez to beat most heavyweights. Not all, but most. And definitely not Usyk. Would I like to see it? Yeah, but there's fights that I like to see a lot more. For example, Bivol at 175, Jai Apataya. So would I like to see him move up to heavyweight to fight Usyk? Yeah, I think it would be fun. I think it would be a fun fight to make. But I would much rather see him fight Bivol or...
No one saw the discussion escalating this quickly after a commanding win, because in boxing, fighters are usually still soaking in the aftermath of victory while the internet is already reshaping their future, moving them into entirely new weight classes and lining them up against problems they have not even had time to prepare for.
Sure, but I gotta say, the way Benavidez is looking, I think that gotta lean towards him.
He could do, think about, hold on, wait, what did I just hear? Think about what we just said on this show. And guys, it's with the caveat that he had the right guy in front of him, right? Zurdo at cruiserweight. But I have said so far in this show that Benavidez has to be in the conversation, considering he did it at 200 pounds for fastest combination puncher of all time. Devin is saying that's a hell of a fight, him and Usyk. Teo just came out and said he'd lean Benavidez against the heavyweight champ.
And also, Usyk is turning 40 next year?
Yeah, he's 38.
That matters. Okay, 38, 39, 40, that's close. That's 40 years old, that matters. And the speed thing, Usyk's always fighting guys he's faster.
But right after David Benavidez left no doubts in his latest performance against Zordo Ramirez, something strange happened in the usual rhythm of boxing politics. Instead of the standard list of familiar opponents circling at super middleweight or light heavyweight, his camp did something that sounded almost like a dare to reality itself. They started talking about Oleksandr Usyk.
Oleksandr Usyk in 2027 for the heavyweight championship of the world. That is an absolutely insane fight. I know David Benavidez is very big and very fast, and Usyk is small for a heavyweight in the modern times, but I know David Benavidez just did the jump from light heavyweight to cruiserweight. But the fact that he was a light heavyweight at all, and before that he was 168, jumping all the way to heavyweight, like that's Roy Jones shit. I could see him jumping to heavyweight and fighting like a lesser champion.
Like that is Roy Jones. I could see him jumping to heavyweight and fighting like a lesser champion, and not in a casual that would be nice one day kind of way. This was direct. This was ambitious. This was the kind of call-out that makes promoters lean back in their chairs and quietly ask who allowed this conversation to get serious.
David Benavidez beats Oleksandr Usyk at heavyweight. Believe it or not, there are people that actually believe that David Benavidez beats Usyk, and it's like, bro, that's simply just crazy talk. I mean, I get it, Benavidez is a great fighter, but as of right now, he just got the cruiserweight, hasn't fought Alpatai yet, hasn't fought Bivol, hasn't fought Beterbiev, fights that we actually want to see. And the thing is, I do think Benavidez is crazy enough to take on that challenge against Usyk, but as of right now, that would be a huge mistake for him. Truthfully, Usyk already has his own battles to take care of at heavyweight, taking on guys like Caballal, Wardley, Itama. Those are all way more realistic fights for him right now. One thing to mention though is the fact that David already said it's going to be about 5 years before he goes to heavyweight. The thing is, with Turkey involved,
had just proven once again why people called him a problem in multiple divisions. And instead of easing into the usual negotiations for belts and rankings, his team pointed upward toward the heavyweight landscape where the names are bigger, the punches are heavier, and the margin for error disappears almost completely. That is where Oleksandr Usyk enters the picture. A fighter who has already rewritten what modern dominance looks like. He unified cruiserweight, moved into heavyweight, and did not just survive there, but outclassed giants who were supposed to be too big, too strong, and too experienced for anyone coming up from smaller divisions. So, after Ben's big win, others, however, noticed something different. The confidence behind the call-out was not casual. It sounded planned, almost like a long-term idea that suddenly got loud at the wrong time. And then came the voice of Usyk, or more accurately the silence before his response, because Usyk does not usually react like other fighters. He does not chase headlines. He does not jump into verbal exchanges just to keep his name trending. When he speaks, it tends to land with more weight than expected, even if the words themselves are measured.
You don't know how to super tight unless he want to come to heavyweight. Now he can go super middleweight, light heavyweight, cruiser heavy. Why would you play with a guy who's just as dangerous as Usyk, not as known as Usyk, not going to bring you as much money as Usyk, when you can just go straight to Usyk? That's kind of crazy. In a boxing ring with those 10-ounce gloves on, anything can happen. And that's my words to David Benavidez, because I know he listens to me, he looks up to me, thinks a lot of me. I'm going to tell him it's okay to say no, Patai.
In this case, what made everything more intense was how long he said nothing at all. While Ben's name started circulating in heavyweight discussions, Usyk was locked into something far more immediate. His attention was already consumed by preparations for a high-stakes clash against Rico Verhoeven in a spectacle being staged near the pyramids in Egypt, a crossover event that blends boxing pressure with global attention and historical backdrop. For Usyk, this was not the time for distractions. Every second of his focus was tied to an opponent who presents his own kind of danger. And that explains why his reaction to the Ben's talk initially looked like silence rather than engagement. But silence in boxing is never empty. It usually means calculation. While fans debated whether Benz could comfortably deal with his pressure and output, he described a fighter who overwhelms opponents not just physically but mentally, breaking their rhythm until the fight becomes survival instead of strategy. And he was not shy about the direction they believed boxing was heading. According to him, the traditional pool of challengers was already drying up. The usual names were no longer enough to satisfy the ambition inside their camp. In his eyes, this was no longer just about belts. It was about legacy on a scale that forces conversations beyond normal.
Alishiki, chill. Usyk is bigger than Benavidez. Usyk will not stand in front of Benavidez and take all those combos. Is a great counterpuncher. Elite footwork, will literally keep distance controls and counter Benavidez all night until he gets TKO like the ball.
Usyk.
It's probably like about a 10%.
It's not zero.
It's not zero. Yeah, it's a higher percentage than Canelo. To be honest with you, so
I was gonna get to him.
Usyk definitely in the future, But first things first, Usyk is I give my respects to him. He's an all-time legend, and it would be.
Things got even more controversial because legacy talk always brings in comparisons. Naturally, the conversation drifted toward figures like Canelo Alvarez and whether the current generation of rising champions is beginning to redefine what face of boxing actually means. Some fans interpreted the confidence as disrespect, while others saw it as the natural language of a fighter who has outgrown his environment and is searching for bigger challenges. But boxing rarely rewards simple ambition. It tests it. What makes the Usyk conversation so complicated is not just size, but timing and skill combination. Relentless, high-volume pressure fighter with fast hands and non-stop activity. If that style translates effectively to heavyweight, it could present problems that are not solved by size alone. On the other side, critics point out the obvious reality that heavyweight boxing is not simply an extension of lower weight classes. It is a different ecosystem where a single mistake can erase multiple rounds of success. Even respected industry voices have weighed in with mixed reaction.
Retire and the belts got split up, he could pick one of those off. But fighting Oleksandr Usyk, I don't care what age he is. If you give Oleksandr Usyk all of the advantages he already has, plus now he's not the massively smaller man, I don't see David Benavidez as great as I think he is. We have weight classes for a reason. And I don't see him really standing a chance there. And maybe if this is next year, maybe Oleksandr Usyk ages and he just falls off a cliff. I mean, if he does it...
Fighters like Ben's are not ordinary challengers. They bring a style that can trouble even the most established champions, especially those who rely heavily on timing and distance control. That is where the debate becomes interesting because boxing fans love theoretical matchups almost as much as actual fights. And once the conversation reached social platforms and forums, the reaction split into two completely different narratives. One group believes that moving into Usyk's world too early would be a career risk that could derail years of carefully built momentum. The other group argues that avoiding elite challenges defeats the entire purpose of being considered special in the first place. Then came a more analytical angle where commentators tried to break down the logic of crossover success using comparisons and past examples. But Usyk himself is not sitting still waiting for fantasy matchups. His current focus remains locked on immediate challenges, and his preparation for high-profile events suggests a fighter who is still fully invested in active dominance rather than legacy exhibition.
We see Turki Al-Sheikh tell his Ring magazine outlet that he's interested in you versus Usyk. What do you think of that?
As of me, for having a competitive spirit, definitely does interest me. You know, like I said, at the end of the day, you don't know what's possible until you make it possible. You know what I mean? And a lot of people think I can't beat Usyk, but if I really put my mind into it and, you know, train for maybe like a year, because I barely came up to cruiserweight, I can't just go up to heavyweight like that. But if I train myself and I prepare myself, I could beat anybody in the world. But I'm never gonna say never, because maybe in the future when I'm like 35, we could go up to heavyweight. But right now, I'm really just taking care of the cruiserweight and the light heavyweight.
When asked about future possibilities, even Ben's acknowledged reality in a surprisingly grounded way. He admitted that while the idea of facing Usyk is intriguing, there are still significant steps to take before that conversation becomes practical. He spoke about testing himself against other elite names first, including fighters like Dmitry Bivol and Artur Beterbiev, recognizing that those fights would define whether his current dominance can truly translate upward. That honesty added another layer to the discussion because it showed that even within the ambition, there is awareness of how steep the climb actually is. Meanwhile, analysts continue to debate the hypothetical matchup using everything from technical breakdowns to statistical comparisons. Some even tried to apply boxing analogies from past eras, suggesting that styles can sometimes override weight differences if timing and skill align perfectly. But others quickly shut that down, pointing out that heavyweight physics tends to ignore romantic theories. Then came the most fascinating twist in the entire story. An industry leak suggesting that high-level figures, including major financial power brokers in boxing, are already aware of the potential marketing magnitude of such a fight. Reports circulating around insider circles hinted that long-term planning discussions could eventually place a cross-divisional spectacle involving these names somewhere on the timeline, depending entirely on how both fighters progress.
Monster's just become the unified cruiserweight champion of the world, and now we're talking about a super matchup in the heavyweight division? Boxers going crazy. Now David has a long list of potential matchups in the light heavyweight division, such as your Artur Beterbiev and of course Dmitry Bivol. And in the cruiserweight division, none other than the man himself, Jai Petaya. But a showdown against Oleksandr Usyk, don't get me wrong guys, it's intriguing, but did I opt for this? Nah. As for Oleksandr Usyk, there's other matchups that I need to see him take on first. I mean the winner between Dubois versus Fabio Wally, or even Ajay Kabayel. But if Turki Al-Sheikh wants a matchup, most of the time, he gets it done. And don't get me wrong guys, if this ever materializes in 2027, it will draw eyes from all over the globe.
Kind of timeline changes everything because it shifts the conversation from immediate fantasy to long-term possibility. It also explains why neither fighter is rushing toward it. Usyk has immediate obligations that demand full focus, while Benz is still building the heavyweight credibility needed to make such a leap believable in competitive terms rather than just promotional excitement. And yet, despite all the logic pointing toward patience, boxing fans rarely operate on patience. They operate on curiosity. They want to know what happens when relentless pressure meets elite control. They want to see whether volume punching can disrupt precision at the highest level. They want to know if size, skill, and timing can ever truly balance out when both fighters refuse to break. That is why this conversation refuses to disappear. Because underneath all the analysis, predictions, and promotional strategy, there is still one simple idea driving everything forward. What happens if David Benavidez actually steps into the ring with Oleksandr Usyk at the peak of their powers? Until that question is answered inside a ring, every warning, every call out, and every silence will continue to feel like the opening chapter of something.
Mike, great fight. Lived up to the nickname, didn't he? He did well. He did well.
You know where you're going? No.
Right here. Mike, so after Benavidez's performance tonight, the next thing for Benavidez is what? You want to see him unify the division, go down to light heavyweight?
I want him to be where he feels comfortable at.
Did you talk to him before the fight? And if you did, what advice did you give him?
Yes, he's a great fighter. He knows what to do. I didn't have to give him any advice, but he fought great tonight.
Appreciate it.
And right now, boxing is doing what it always does when it senses something dangerous and exciting approaching at the same time. It is watching, waiting, and arguing loudly while the fighters themselves move quietly toward their next inevitable collision. And while the boxing world keeps arguing in circles, the real story continues unfolding away from microphones and social media noise, where timing matters more than opinions and patience can be just as powerful as punches. Usyk remains locked into his immediate priorities, fully aware that every fight at this stage of his career carries a different kind of pressure. At this level, it is no longer about proving talent, but about preserving control over a legacy that already sits among the most respected in modern boxing history. That is why every decision around his next steps is calculated, almost surgical in its precision. Meanwhile, Benavidez is operating in a completely different current, one driven by momentum and ambition. His rise across multiple divisions has created a rare situation where confidence is not just personal belief, but a public expectation. Fans are no longer asking whether he can dominate his current weight class, but how far upward he is willing to push that dominance before the limits finally appear.
Done with the kickboxer, assuming he wins, which, be crazy if he didn't. Who is Usyk's next opponent? So I made a list of Usyk's possible next opponents. So first, we have David Benavidez. I don't think this is as likely as a lot of people seem to think. David Benavidez just had his first fight at cruiserweight. He's probably going to move back down the other way. There's more good fights for him there that he would be more favorited in. Like against Bivol, that's a top 10 pound for pound matchup. Against Benavidez, I don't think David Benavidez really...
Alright everyone, stay tuned for the latest in boxing news, highlights, events, and stories. Subscribe to Legacy Round and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Be sure to watch our other videos too. Until next time, take care and stay safe.